So first things first, hi Patrick.
Hi, how are you? Very good, and you?
I'm very good, thank you. Well, we started talking before the camera was turned on, and we were talking about how you visited Amsterdam quite a bit. So do you remember your first trip to Amsterdam?
If I'm not mistaken, the first time I played Amsterdam was at the Paradiso, so it's a very spoiled way to play Amsterdam the first time. And we were opening up for James Brown.
Okay.
I believe that is the first time. It's either that one or the Lonely Deer. I don't know which one came first. No, it's the James Brown, I think, that came first, because then I played upstairs with Lonely Deer, and then we played after Interpol after. Yeah, it was James Brown was the first one. So yes, that was the first time I played Amsterdam.
What is your memory of this, of that time and kind of being on the road?
Well, I mean, Amsterdam's such a particular city. I mean, for you guys, you're all used to it. But like, obviously your first moment in Amsterdam is like, oh my God, I'm always this guy hit by a bike. Like, you know, I know it's like you guys hear it all the time, but like, what do you want? It's like one of the first memories is like, fucking those bikes. I just remember being like, there's no cars here. What a magical place. I know it's like you guys are all used to it, so it's pretty obvious answer, but maybe you underestimate the kind of pace of this city because it's no cars. Really gives us such a magical feel. And maybe when you're not from here, like it blows your mind when you come here, and when you are from here, it's just like everybody says that, so you're probably sick of it. But I just remember the bike passes. I don't know, just the whole feeling of the city was just like a pretty magical city to me. I just loved it pretty quickly, actually.
But what you're saying is that I'm from a smaller town somewhere else in the country, and it does take some adjusting coming here, because it's with the bikes, it's even
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like you literally almost die for the first 10 minutes walking in Amsterdam. And it's like not by a car, it's by a bike. And it's by like a really grumpy Dutch person who's like totally sick of tourists. Be like, oh my God, oh my God. And they're yelling at you like, I'm so sorry, I just got here. And they're screaming at you, and you're like, okay, a darker red is death and a lighter red is walk. Great, I've got it. Woo!
Do you remember, because what year was this, do you remember?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean,
So
the
way
early
back.
2000s,
Okay.
like 2005 or something like that. I don't know, something like that.
This is so probably after your first record was released. Do you remember?
Probably right before Close to Paradise.
Do you remember what
Or after, I don't know.
what kind of mindset you were in as an artist at that point? Where you were as in your, let's say, musical development?
I don't know. It's really hard to remember what that period is. I know we were doing Close to Paradise, so I was coming from more of a multimedia weird theater shows into like trying to make songs. And we were playing shows as a band in like real like show settings where we just make weird stages in places. So I was just getting into the idea of like how to play a show. If I remember properly, I was learning, especially that tour, I was learning how to be a frontman, and I had a really good teacher. So he was teaching me how to do it night after night, and I just kind of learned my ropes that way. And then plus everybody hates you when you play before James Brown, so you get used to that. So it's like a great training. So you have to get on stage and be like, oh Christ, stop doing that. Put James Brown on stage, and he didn't have to deal with that. So I just used to learn how to be a frontman by the nature of survival.
What is one thing that you saw in them that you kind of that you learned from as a frontman?
I think what I learned from that tour was that like I would have assumed beforehand that he was directing the audience, or like he was conducting the feel, the concert of the audience. Or watching him night after night, I realized it was actually a partnership between him and the audience. And he would give them like moments of explosions, and then he'd wait for them to tell him when he could explode again, even if it cost 10 minutes of waiting at the bridge. And he would stay there for the chorus, and he'd actually wait for them to they wouldn't be able to take him more, like give me the chorus, and then he'd call the band and give them the chorus. So I realized it was a bit more closer to what I used to do in church as a kid, and it was much more of a communal kind of experience, instead of like, I just would have thought he just dictated it, and didn't entirely work that way, in fact. I mean, did and didn't, it's a mix.
So he's not presenting himself as somebody who's up here and then the audience is down here.
No, in fact, he makes everybody taller. I mean, that's the real trick. That's probably the greatest trick of like I think the greatest performers. It's not like making you look really cool on stage, it's making everybody feel cool in the audience. And I think that's a big difference.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's like a lot of people go on stage and want to look how special I am, but then there's some performers that make everybody feel really special, and I kind of think that's the greater of the two talents.
So you mentioned your church background, and
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a religious person
no,
by
no, but
any stretch of the imagination, but
in sense of singing,
in the sense that the reason why that would be relevant is that like music in a church is relevant in the sense of moments of people passing grief, or important moments like they're getting married, or like if they're important moments in their life and they come with big emotions, and then the music's job is to participate in those emotions with them. Do you know what I mean? And help people through those kind of things. So I grew up in music, it being kind of a tool for people and not like a party thing, more like a thing that was an important part of their lives. And I actually had no idea about bands or cool or fun things. I just didn't have, I was in a small town, I didn't know what the hell was going on until much later. Then I mixed the two, but I don't know, you just grew up being like, you're like, it's a job. It's like you're like gonna participate, even though you're singing, it's not about you singing, it's about a moment. And you're supposed to give people that moment. It's not really about you.
So can I assume that this has always been your approach to not only performing live, but in terms of what you kind of wanted the effect of your music to be?
I'm definitely a musician that I believe music belongs to music and doesn't belong to me. I definitely come from that school of thought. I don't. So like someone comes up to you like, man, you changed my life. Or like, I had my first child with you, or like when my dad passed, you were there for me. And I'm like, the thing about it is like melodies and notes and sound, they're very powerful tools. They have like a huge effect on people. And it'd be a little bit ridiculous if I kind of thought that was because of me and not because of music. So I'm much more into the idea of like letting music take the credit, not me. In a kind of way of dealing with it. I just find it more fun in the end anyways. Less pressure, and that just belongs to music, not to me.
But in the sense of your music being able to reach people and to connect with people, then is that a conscious thing when you're writing and when you're creating music, or is that something that just happens, as it were?
It is a certain sensibility. There is like a difference between singing for yourself, playing for yourself, and then letting music just do its thing. There's a difference between the two. So I think it's just a conscious sensibility where there's a generous place and there's not a generous place. So yeah, I do enjoy the generous place more than the other.
Right, because I can imagine that over the years, well, you've also written for a lot of TV shows, movies. There's a visual component to what you do. But that's kind of, you're working in assignments. So now with Wave, is it Wave?
Sure, I don't know. You pick.
But
someone told me this morning they like should have called it Melody Noir, and I'm like, so much better. I was so upset when he said that. Like stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue.
No, but is it fair to say that the record was a little bit more inward looking than maybe what you've done in the past?
Is it inward looking? I don't know if it's inward looking. It's a lot less abstract, and it's a little bit more to the point.
Right.
And I don't know if I always think I look outward, not inward. I think it's always on the way out, not on the way in. It's not a diary by any stretch of the imagination, that's for sure. I'm not into diary writing. I don't like doing it.
Right.
I mean, some people do it really well. Like, for example, like Sufjan Stevens, his lyrics sometimes feel like you're reading a diary, but he's a fucking genius, and I want to read his diary, and I don't want to read my diary. You know what I mean? There's some people you just want to hear, like, what kind of cake was on the table and what song was playing on the radio, and some people have that gift of being able to make that really interesting. I would say 95% of people don't, and a small percentage of 5% do, and I think Sufjan Stevens is a great example of that, someone who actually can do that, and be like totally amazing. But that really takes a really particular type of person and a special person. I think for me.
But well, do you acknowledge that people might say the same about you?
I have a very different gift than that. You know what I mean? I think my lyrics are a little bit more easy to own and in a personal way. In your way, you know what I mean? They'll just grab on and be able to put it as part of their life and feel like it's talking about exactly. I think it's a little bit more of an open landscape than as direct as Sufjan Stevens. I'm sure it does something for some people, and I'm proud of that. You know what I mean? Like everybody does something different, and that's cool. You know.
Right, but also in the sense, like I'm sure that there's people that would like to read your diary in a sense.
I don't think so.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, it just, I don't know. Maybe
Maybe I'm wrong. It's just.
It's just that like some people have a magical eye of like some even like some writers even like they'll just like talk about a very monotonous room, and just what they catch in that room is just like so entertaining because they just know how to look at that room the proper way. Where I am better at capturing what that room feels like, the visceral description of that room, and I can color the room and you can feel what that room feels like, but I don't have the talent of describing what the objects in the room that like some people do, but I can definitely give you the taste in the mouth, what it tastes like.
In terms of capturing that visceral kind of sense of the room, then how do you start with a song? Is it always with some sound?
There's no recipe. It's just a disaster.
So you have to figure it out.
You just throw everything you can at the wall, and then like something. Either you have a lyric, or you have a note, you have a melody, you're just looking for anything that just kind of like grabs you in a certain way, and then you just go from there. And that could be either from Mishka or from me or from anybody in the band. At that point, but when you do catch a fish, you just know it's a fish, and then you start like trying to wheel it in. But you just try everything you can to catch fish.
Well, that makes sense. When you started kind of this idea of, well, let me ask you differently. When did the idea of this album start to take shape? Because Broken, I believe, was released in 2017, if I'm...
It only took shape like in the last 3 months.
Okay.
I finally figured out how to put it as a record, but it was this constant chaos.
Okay.
So it was like, always thought it was be finishing, then a restart, and I'm like, oh, life's all different. Fuck, I got to restart. And then at the end, I just said, fuck it, I'll just put it all on one record. And I don't know, it's just such a chaotic 4 years. I don't think there was a plan of attack. I think it was, other than I knew that I wanted to make a simple record with not too much production. I knew I wanted to be pretty direct and sincere. So I guess that's why you meant like it's an intimate record. But direct and sincere as being like I didn't want to make too much fluff.
Right.
I didn't want too much poetry. I just wanted to be like, hey, this is a weird day.
Right.
This is a weird day. I was going to say it like it is. I was listening to a lot of, like I thought, like when you had like the new R&B stuff out, like Frank Ocean stuff, there's like this real kind of rawness to the lyrics that I think you just can't go backwards from once that's been laid out. And then the only other, which made me think of John Lennon, who had that. He's the only old school writer that kind of, for me, had that kind of rawness that I think would have worked in the modern age. So I was just looking for that kind of raw, visceral, like lyrics and words that could, like, if I took away the music, it'd still like give you a pretty strong impact.
Right.
So I was definitely working on my lyrics. I did some work for Leonard Cohen on his last record, and that obviously had a huge influence on. I mean, it's especially in like delivery and intention. I mean, I'm obviously not a poet like Leonard Cohen in some ways. I do my own thing, but you know what I mean? He's like very much like one of the best poets.
Sure.
Or known as the best poets. I mean, I prefer his interviews. I always say that.
Okay.
Than to his song lyrics. I find them more poetic and more beautiful.
Okay.
Funny enough, but anyways, it's a whole other conversation.
I should check him out because I have listened to his music. I haven't seen many interviews.
I find his interviews. I'm not a big fan of Devils and Angels kind of lyrics, like the big religious themes or like big ideas. I really like humble. So sometimes in his interviews he'll just say this like really like sincere small idea, and it'll be so eloquent and so graceful that you're just like, wow, what a genius. And I like just lyrics and songs like that too, but they're also shrouded by lots of like pretty heavy duty poetry. And I just said sometimes in his interviews, the way he's so direct, I was more inspired by those words than sometimes his song words, funny enough for me. But most people would shoot me for saying that.
You mentioned the directness and the kind of the rawness in terms of lyrics and focusing or honing in on that. Was that also a reaction on kind of the chaotic nature of the past couple of years?
No, I wanted to do that anyways.
Okay.
I think it's a really, really loud world. And it's when I come home at the end of the day, I just can't take it anymore. So like you just want something to kind of like just like there to you. You don't want all the crazy bells and whistles because everything's got bells and whistles on it. So at some point of the day, like I was trying to figure out what. There's lots of music people like talking about and be like, that's a great record and that's really cool, but then no one actually really listens to it for real. And then there's like some records that are just more subtle that people actually listen to. You know, I think there's a difference and a distinguished difference. And I just wanted to make a record people listen to and not talked about.
This is, I don't know if this is a good question, but do you think there's an ideal way to listen to your music then, or this record?
I think you should listen to it loud. I think because I mix it really loud and when I listen to it, and I don't think it has its full effect. I definitely think driving or walking or doing something like that usually is the best. Like moving somewhere and you have headphones on, I think that's gonna be fun, but I don't know, people do what they like to do.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, the reason why I brought up Broken is because it does deal with, I suppose, something that you've experienced in the last couple of years. So how do you kind of take what's going on in your life and then quite abstractly or as concretely as you like, create something out of that people can connect with?
I mean,
or isn't it that conscious?
It's not a really conscious decision. You know, you're not really consciously ever making those kind of decisions. I know I don't like writing songs like Broken very often.
Okay.
I think those kind of songs you can write them every once in a while. I think too many of them it's very easy to write sad songs and stuff. And it's very easy, unless it's like a particular part of your life where you're like really super duper mean it. And it's time, and it's like that was time for that song, and I just felt, I don't know, I kind of wrote it really viscerally. It was just really like, there's not much thought put into it in that tune. It was just, I just laid it on the table.
And was that the first record, first song that you wrote that ended up on the record?
No, I wrote Here Comes the River first.
Okay.
Or The Wave, one or the other, I can't remember which one.
So was that idea of a wave or the wave already established by the time you...
It was established like lots of many different ways. One like dealing with like, when your head's like not doing well, and you have to learn how to like deal with that. I mean, one of the things is like, you have to know when you've got to let your brain do its thing and not fight it, and just let it pass before you like do anything.
Sure.
You know, like you just kind of have to learn to accept certain things and like swim with it, and as soon as you swim against the current, it just gets a million times worse. So it was a bit invented for that, and also invented in a way that I was like, okay, my life just got totally swept away, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna have to go with it. Like I can't, you know, trying to fight for something that doesn't work. It's not just means you're gonna drown.
Right.
So that the moment you just kind of let go and be like, well, this is gonna hurt, and then you get swept in the wave, and it's going to toss and turn you. If you just let it do its thing, eventually it spits you out. If you try to swim during that process, you're going to drown. So the only way to do is like sometimes you just got to let that shit fuck you up, and then at the end, once it stops, then you swim. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. It'll throw you on the riverbank, and then hopefully you can crawl your way up.
Well, I mean, any surfer knows, like, or anybody who does water sports knows that, like, if you get in a really bad spot, like, you just gotta kind of hold your breath, stay relaxed, and eventually it's gonna spit you out. And if you struggle at any time before that, you'll lose your oxygen that you'll need when it's really time to use it. So you just have to know when it's time to swim. Right. And when it's time to just let it push you around a bit, and then pick your moment to swim.
For you, is this something you'd always kind of was this a mentality you always had?
No,
or is this something you learned
not.
throughout?
I learned.
Okay.
I learned very harshly.
Okay. If I'm getting too personal, obviously.
No, I won't say nothing too personal, anyways.
But what for you was a turnaround then? Was it writing a song? What kind of? When did you know to use your breath and kind of get out?
Oh, I had no choice. There was just some moments where I was just like, in like a pretty particular circumstance where I was like, I'm just gonna have to ride this thing out, and then like, it's just what's gonna happen. There's nothing you can do about it. Just stay chill. It's gonna pass. And it was the only way. It was no other way. It was like there was no other way of learning it.
Right. But do you then look at those songs that came out of it differently than perhaps some other songs that you've written, or is it all part of the same kind of creative?
What do you mean, this album or this?
Well, this album or the particularly
for sure
those
this album's
songs.
like a little particular because the life. My life's always gets integrated in your music. How could it not? It's gonna have an effect. I mean, this one's just different just because there were just challenges that involve like totally reinventing everything in a way, and just like everything you kind of thought things were going to be, it just wasn't going to be that way, and you're just kind of making peace with that kind of thing versus like having a tough moment. It's not the end of the world, but like
Right. And now for the single, this is what you describe in the new single, kind of dreams that you have
dreaming.
when you're. I suppose everybody does this, but you have kind of visions or dreams of how your life is going to turn out, or
just like moments when your life shifts, and then you're like, "Oh my God! Like, is this for real?" You're like, "You gotta be kidding me!" There is a certain sense of humor, dreaming.
Sure.
That's why there's the puppets.
Sure.
I don't know. You're just like, "Fuck! I can't, really? Are you just for real about this?" And you're just kind of like, "I guess so." And it's kind of funny.
But
it's kind of not funny, but it is funny.
Sure, there's always a sense of comedy and tragedy, I suppose.
Well, at some point when like, I think the greatest thing about like when I have to start over from scratch is that like before you've ever had to really start from scratch, you kind of like are really worried that things will fall apart, and it makes you a little bit nervous about keeping things together. But then once actually like things you thought you can't rebuild and you do rebuild them, you gain a different confidence in life, being like, well, it's kind of okay, it's not what you thought, and you just kind of like let go a bit. And it's kind of a lot nicer to live like that than holding on to things that are really hard to hold on to.
And I suppose, like you mentioned, it also makes you realize that you can get through tough situations or times.
Yeah, I just feel like also like there's a lot of ideas of like what things should be.
Right, sure, yes.
I think people have a lot of ideas of like where they should be and what things should be. And like, I think some of those ideas are more damaging than it just being not that way.
Sure.
Just being super relaxed and be like, well, it's not perfect. Shit happens. It's okay. Like, in fact, I've never been happier.
Have you ever had this feeling towards music, kind of, and the industry, and then kind of when you started out and then had a vision of what it would be to be a touring musician, and did you ever have kind of those kinds of...
I didn't want to be a touring musician, so I didn't really have any visions until I did it. I just wanted to write music and do things.
Right.
I didn't think I'd be like some singer and touring. I just didn't have that kind of vision career. I thought more like, oh, I'm going to write like music for these like weird installations and make these magical moments. I didn't even really like... I was terrible at writing songs when I was really young. I mean, the songs were so... I listened to them recently and they're so awful. I was just so bad at it. And then I guess when I found pictures for Waterproof 9, I started to get an idea of how to do it. And then I got outside of myself a bit and I was like, oh, that's much more interesting. And then I think with every album some things get better, some things get worse, but I definitely think this album's like filled with really well-written songs. I think it's a very strong record for that. Like a lot of the songs are just really, really strong.
And well, you mentioned the sparseness or the kind of the I don't know if that's the right word, but kind of the music. And was that an effort to make people focus on the lyrics and the kind of the intonations? And
it's about like having good lyrics, and that was the tough part about this record, is that like since it's so bare, if the lyrics are mediocre, it just disappears right away, the whole thing. So then it would like every word had to count because it was so damn simple. Like if I got like big reverbs on everything and stuff, I can just talk about unicorns and leprechauns and no one know the difference. But if it's just like you just kind of barely just talking the words, they have a lot more weight, so you better have weight behind the words. So you'd spend a lot more time lyrics because of that.
Right. And now, kind of to round off this interview, to kind of start where we're, that's not right, to
Yeah, to
stop
go back
where
to-
we started.
Yeah.
Quite recently, you did a show in Amsterdam, I suppose with the new material. So what
Yeah.
have you noticed about, and not just in Amsterdam, but what have you noticed about how people react to what you've...
I find people react more immediate to these songs than before. Like usually you play a new song and people are like, they think it's cool and they like it, but you won't get like, they won't love, like it seems like people take in the song faster than normal. And it's really hard for me to know because I'm on the stage, you know what I mean? I don't really know how people are taking them. I know that they're really easy to play and they just play very easily without effort. Like you don't need to do big, you don't need fireworks for it to be touching, like they're just touching pretty easily without much work, you know?
Sure.
And if I just concentrate on the words and concentrate on the bare bones of it, it just seems to really just do it.
Well, let me ask it slightly differently then, because obviously at some level you'll care about what the audience thinks, but do you ever worry about what the audience might think of the music? Because like you say, you never thought about being touring
I
musician.
don't necessarily worry about the audience. I just worry, like, I don't want to go on stage and it's not a fun concert.
Right.
I don't think it's about worrying about, like, I just like when it feels good. It's more of a selfish thing. It just feels good when it feels good. Yeah, I'm not, I mean, and that's a bad thing and a good thing. Like I have a huge admiration for like some performers who'll walk on stage and they'll just bring something totally fucking crazy and make these statements that makes everybody really uncomfortable. And they just have the power to do that and they're comfortable with that. I have like large amounts of respect for that and admiration because I'm just not good at that. I'm too sensitive and I really have trouble making people feel uncomfortable. Just not good at it. It's not one of my gifts, but I do have like large admiration for the people who can do that. It's such a great thing to be able to do.
How come?
It just some people have that gift. It's such a gift.
Well, I get what you're saying, but why, for instance, why would you like to be able to make people? It sounds so weird.
It just means that you can like stand in the wave of like a crowd of people and have like a strong enough bubble around you that you like their bubble can't even influence your bubble, and you can like withstand the. Being in front of an audience is like a large feeling.
Sure.
And being able to stand up to that sensation and be like, nope, I'm gonna make it like totally something that's gonna make it really difficult for you guys. It's just like I just have a large admiration for people who can do that. And I don't mean in a cheap way.
Sure.
I mean like the real way. Like for example, Connan Mockasin. Have you ever seen him live?
Sure. I haven't. I've spoken to him, but I haven't seen him.
It's like the weirdest thing. He'll literally like mumble and walk around the stage for like 5 minutes between songs. So uncomfortable. But it makes people feel free by the end of the concert because he's just so crazy and out that people start feeling just like, oh, people let go of everything at the same time because he's let go. He's let go of such an extreme amount that like, you just like, all the things you're supposed to do as a singer, like nobody gives a crap anymore. Yeah, I think when someone's like a real, like when I say punk, I mean punk in the real sense, not the fashion sense. Someone who just like stand up to a whole room that wants one thing and you just break all those rules and you don't give it to them, and to the point where people let go of them and then they get a sense of freedom. For me, that's like the real translation of what a punk can do and offer people, and I think it's like an incredible gift to have that. And I have like large admiration for anybody who has that gift because I think it's a very important gift.
All right. Patrick, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you.